Hip Hop Humboldt.
What's good, y'all? Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Hip Hop Humboldt Podcast. And man, let me tell you what, we have a really special one for you today. In this episode of the podcast, I am blessed to be able to have this opportunity to interview one of the dopest artists that I've actually ever interviewed to this point. And I'm talking about the man you can be seeing on your screen here. I'm talking about Blueprint. How you doing today, Blueprint?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. The pleasure's all mine. I really appreciate your time. And so, the Hip Hop Humboldt podcast has been here in Humboldt, giving spotlight to artists locally. And so, what I've
Mhm.
slowly done is branched out and trying to get people from outside the area. But actually, what people are going to be soon finding out is that you're going to be coming to Humboldt soon for a show during your tour.
Yep. Yep. The vessel tour. Yep. I'll be out there very soon.
Awesome. And we're going to get into that because that Vessel is your album that's coming out during the summertime. And I can't wait for that one. And so, yeah, other than that, you know what I mean? We got some questions. This was, and pardon me for just, kind of putting it out on the podcast. I'm just being real about it because, our community knows the homie Case, Mental Case from LCA.
Mm.
Case helped facilitate, this. And so I wanted to give a shout out to Case for making this happen. You know what I mean? And for consistently helping artists and the scene in Humboldt County hip hop out here. So, but yeah, so um, one of the things I wanted to get into, I like to kind of go over people's past a bit, talk about their journey. And so you've done some things. One of the big things, and at least is potentially big in terms of how people may see it around here or whatnot. You're on Rhymesayers. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. I released 5 albums on Rhymesayers. Yep.
Dope,
5 records over
dope.
there. Yeah.
And that's only a portion of your catalog, because from what I was seeing, you got about at least like 13 to 14 albums that I found on just on Spotify. So you got a catalog.
Yeah. I had my own label before I got with Rhymesayers. So that's kind of how, and actually having my own label was what facilitated me getting on there. And
Mm,
so I started Weightless in maybe 99 or something around the year 2000, just me and all my guys, Logic and Greenhouse Effect. And in the course of doing that, we started playing shows. And as we started playing shows, I was living in Cincinnati and my guys live in Columbus. And this is when like Atmosphere first started touring.
mm.
So their very first shows in Columbus and Cincinnati, we were on those shows because people were like, "Hey, we need some people on these shows who are like-minded. So would y'all want to open for this group called Atmosphere?" And we're like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so we played with Atmosphere in Cincinnati on some events. Then they played Columbus a couple months later, and then the next time they came back and went to Cleveland, and they were like, "Hey, man, we got you in Cleveland. Y'all want to play with us in Cleveland?" We're like, "All right, cool, yeah, we drive up there too." And that was kind of the start of our friendship with the Rhyme Series guys. That was Idea, Slug, and DJ Abilities. And went on and met Sadiq, the owner of the label, after that. And then, as I started kind of getting into my solo stuff, they were the first people to hear it, and they were interested in putting out my music.
So that's super. I would believe it because, I was listening to, like I said, some of your catalog, man, and I really enjoy your music. You definitely one of the best MCs out here. I like your content, the things you talk about. Your beat selection is definitely solid, and then your flow's solid as well. So,
Thank you.
what I mean, it only makes sense for, a good, group like, Rhymesayers. It just makes sense. So, um, with that being said, I wanted to bring up a few things that I wanted to talk about. So, I kind of always ask this to people. It kind of just helps, you know what I mean? Get because everybody's got something different to say. But, on your journey before you started making music, let's say when you were young, what were some of your influences? Who were some of your
My biggest influences coming up were probably Karis One,
mm,
Public Enemy, um, Tribe Called Quest. Those are probably like my biggest influences. As when I started really getting into hip hop, those three groups, like I still got the Public Enemy, Fear of a Black Planet poster on the wall that I had when
Dope.
it first came out. Um, and those are like my favorite groups back then. They didn't really make me necessarily want to rap because back then it was like only a select few were rapping. And
Mhm.
so, when I heard Rakim and Big Daddy Kane, I never thought I would rap. I always thought I'll never be that good. Why would it? You will never be that good, like leave rap alone and just enjoy it. And then later on in life, I started dabbling with it. But those were the big three: Public Enemy, KRS One, and A Tribe Called Quest.
Dope, dope. I got respect for that right there. I'm definitely a big time out of all three of those, whether it's KRS and then the two bands. I definitely got respect for all three of them. But man, I tell you what, I've seen KRS one when he's come out here, man, and he puts on a really good show. I'm not sure. I bet you probably seen him live.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Like one of the first, really one of the first, my first experience with live hip hop. It wasn't actually seeing him live. He put out a record. I remember way back in the day called. They put out a live BDP record. Boogie Down Productions had a live tape, and I remember having that. I was really young, and I remember just listening to it over and over again, and that kind of just made me think, oh, this is what hip hop shows are like.
Mm.
And that played a big influence on me as well. So I've seen him live as well. Played a show with him. I think one of the last Scribble Jams. It was like the Rhymesayers tour and KRS One was headlining it.
Oh heck
It was the
yeah.
very last Scribble Jam. That was a lineup. Him, Channel Live, and me and Atmosphere, and I think Abstract Rude was the lineup on that.
Oh wow. Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
that sounds like a dope one.
yeah. It was a crazy show.
So then with that being said, so you've at least from what I was able to glean, you've done quite a few things here from, starting like you were talking about with it was green light, right?
Greenhouse Effect. Yep, that was my
Greenhouse
group.
effect, that's right. Let me pull
Yep.
up my notes here. Yeah, tell us, yeah, that was right. That was my question. So tell us what you would want to about greenhouse effect.
Greenhouse Effect was really just my guys from college. That was really where that started. That started out in the dorms, being bored on Friday night, freestyling. And then actually my guy, Inkwell, he was a year ahead of me, but he was like way advanced with the rapping. And so when we would hang out, I would just be beatboxing.
Mm,
I had never really written rhymes. He was the first guy I know writing rhymes and saving them on computers. He had a whole catalog, as a freshman in college. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. So we would hang out and I'd just be beatboxing for him and he'd just be rhyming and I start rhyming and eventually we started kind of getting more ambitious. I wanted to learn about how to make beats because I was like, yo, we're getting good. Why don't we ever try to record? And so I was like, started getting into DJing, worked for the radio station, which, I DJ'd there, was DJing parties on campus. I had a mix show where I was playing underground rap for several years. And then eventually I started looking at the records in the radio station's library, and I was like, loops, samples. This is where they come from. This is how beats are made. And that just sent me down a whole nother thing where I started like I bought some equipment during college, and Greenhouse was born. We were in college. A bunch of college dudes played our first shows there. I would throw events every year, and that's where I kind of started doing it. It was just with my group, and then we put out our first tape, which was like our first set of demos in like '99, and then
mm,
I think we re-released them in the year 2000 on CD, and that was just the start of everything.
dope. And that was all in Ohio.
Yeah, we went to school in a small town called Springfield, Ohio, very small town. But then we were all from Columbus, which is like, the capital. And then after college, I ended up taking a job in Cincinnati, and that's kind of how I knew that whole scene down there was because I was from Columbus, but then I moved to Cincinnati right after school, and then I started putting out music in Cincinnati. And so I knew that whole scene down there, the Mr. Divs and back then everybody, was a lot of cats down there. All the guys that started Anacon, Dose One was down there. Um, uh, what's the other guy? Y. A lot of those dudes who started that label Anacon was there. We were there with Weightless, Dibs, and 1200 Hobos, and Scribble Jam was all there. This was all like back in those days where it was just like its infancy of the scene, but it was a real special time.
That sounds like a dope scene without a doubt.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Um, And so, with that being said, I appreciate too that you're talking about, that makes total sense going from beatboxing to be like, all right, I'm gonna start producing, you know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
at least from what I've been able to glean, like I like the production, whether it's yours or, beats that other people have produced for you. I like your selection and the beats that you've made. And so, if we were to look at your entire catalog going back at this point right now, what would be an album that you would recommend to people that are just kind of breaking into your music?
For people who are just getting to my music, I would say start with a maybe um Respect the Architect, maybe. It's a short record. It's kind of like it's got some straightforward stuff on there. I wasn't doing nothing. I have phases where I have some weird stuff sometimes. Sometimes my instrumental stuff can get a little weird. But Respect the Architect, it's just straightforward, like straightforward messaging. And people really like that record. And it's very like it might only be 30 minutes long, but it's an album, but it's just very concise. I'd say start there and then maybe go to King No Crown or Two-Headed Monster or something like that, you know?
Dope. Heck yeah. That's what's up. And with that being said, too, and we're gonna get into, like I said, we're gonna talk about your new album, Vessel, coming out. But I do, since you said King No Crown, we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary, if not just past, of King No Crown, and then the 20-year anniversary of 1988. And
Yeah.
so, can you tell us what it was like making King No Crown?
King No Crown was made that record's got a weird story because it was like I made that record right after my Adventures in Counterculture record. It was made kind of around the exact same time. That Counterculture record was kind of a weird record. I was doing a lot of different styles and stuff on there. Um, there's records on there where I'm singing on there. There's records on Adventures where I'm kind of just like pushing all the boundaries. But King No Crown was after that. I was like, I want to kind of bring it on back to like some of the boom bap shit I was doing before. So I started working on King No Crown immediately, but it ended up kind of it was in limbo for a while because I wanted it to come out, I think around 2012. It didn't come out till 2015.
Mm.
Um, and then actually Respect the Architect ended up coming out before it. So I was on Rhymesayers, and then around 2012, 2013, I decided to go back to start going back to releasing stuff on my own. But I wasn't quite sure that I could do it, to the level of like what was happening over there. I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this if people are ready. And I was like, and I was like, I don't know if they're ready for a record as dense as King No Crown first. So I was like, let me just do Respect the Architect and put that out, and then I'll come back to King No Crown. So the
Mm.
records came out in reverse order, but King No Crown, it was like I felt like that record was like there was a point where I felt like if I never put out another record, I'd be happy if King No Crown was my last record.
Wow. Okay.
That's how I felt about that record. Like, and I still do to this day because I remember at that time we had went on a tour and I made a movie called King No Crown about we went on tour and we had a bad van accident, totaled the van,
Mm.
and miraculously flipped the van like three times. Everybody walked away without a scratch on them.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? And we ended up being blessed enough to go to finish the tour, but it made me put a lot of things into perspective. Like, yo, if this is it, are you cool with your body at work? And my answer to myself was like, yeah, I'd be cool. If that's the last record I end on, I'm okay with that.
That's what's up right there. I want to encourage folks, go back and listen to King No Crown. you know.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So, one of the things I also kind of wanted to move into, you've worked with RJD2, that was Soul Position. And so can you tell us what it was like working with RJD2 and being a part of Soul Position?
Soul Position came about because he's from Columbus. I'm from Columbus. Um, the weird thing is we met, our intention wasn't to work on that kind of record. Like there was a DJ in Columbus. His name was DJ True Skills. He's like an OG of the scene, right? So he was like our very first actual DJ for like Greenhouse Effect and Illogic. When we would do shows, True Skills was our first DJ, but he knew everybody. And he would tell me like, yo, Prince, you make this weird instrumental stuff sometimes, man. He said, when you next time you come back to Columbus to visit, I'm gonna take you over my guy RJ's house. He just moved back from the Bay. He was
Mm.
living out in the Bay for a few years. He makes weird instrumental shit too. I think y'all would hit it off. And so he took me over to RJ's house, ended up being RJD2. And RJ played me what ended up being his Dead Ringer record. And
Mm.
I played him what was my chamber music record. This was in like the year 2000, 2001. So instrumental stuff wasn't really popping in at all. So it was like, yeah, we were really the only two people making weird instrumental shit around. But then RJ didn't even know I rapped at that time.
Mm.
So there's an event called the Columbus Expo where my group Greenhouse was playing. I was like, yo, me and my guys are gonna play at this thing, come through. And he happened to be, I think he was in a DJ competition because he used to get in the DJ battles every year at this thing. And which is like people don't know, but so after his DJ battle, we performed and we like murdered it. And he just came up to me. He's like, dude, he's like, that was incredible. He's like, have you ever thought about doing some solo shit? And I was like, nah, I actually haven't because I just rhyme in my group and I produce them. And he was like, you should come through next time you come through. I want you to hear some of my rap stuff, beats I make. He said, because we should do some work together. And he was like, I went over his house again, this time as like, oh no, Print is actually a dope rapper. And he was like, yeah, we gotta do some shit together. And I just start working on shit. We did like two or three songs and we like immediately had this chemistry of just like him having a style that brung out some really dope writing in me. And we were friends, we would bug out too. So it's like a very chill thing, man. And like it really was timely because without him, I would have never even saw myself as a solo artist. I
Mm.
had never written any solo songs prior to that. So when Soul Position came out and did well, it was like a surprise to me because I literally never wanted to be. I wasn't one of those guys like, yeah, I want to be the solo rapper. I want to be. I was like, yo, I like doing beats and being in a group. I was cool where I was at, but he saw something in me that made him want to work with me, and that kind of was the start of Soul Position. And one day we were at his house, and I picked up this flyer, and it said, Soul Position Night at the such and such bar, and I was like, that's our name right there. He was
Nice.
like, all right, cool.
Heck yeah.
You know.
Hey, that's what's up. And so how long were you making music with RJD2?
We did music from about 2001 to maybe 2007, I think. So
Mm.
we did three projects. We did the Unlimited EP. That was our first release on Rhymesayers. I think that was 2002. And then I think we did an album called 8 Million Stories, which was I think 2003 or 4. And then we dropped another record, I think '06, called Things Go Better with RJ and Al. And that was our last album together.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Nice, nice. Make sure when y'all go back and listen to the catalog, listen to those right there. Um, And so, with that all being said, let's move into your, what it was like. We talked about it a little bit ago, actually, but what was it like being well, and still being on Rhymesayers, and with like how you got there, and what has it been like?
Yeah, well, Rhymesayers first and foremost, I consider them like friends, like in the game. So like my relationship with Rhymesayers is different from a lot of other artists who have been on a label or are on a label, right? Because like, me and Sadiq, who runs the label, we have a friendship. You know what I mean? So like we would talk on the phone about all types of shit, not just the music shit. We every time we talk, even now, it's like 2 3 hour conversations. But so as we became cool, I was running Weightless and he was running Rhymesayers, so we would always chop up game about the industry, tips, techniques, like how to do this, how this thing works. And so my that was just my relationship with him. Then my relationship with all the artists, friends as well. And so like even though like I mean I haven't put out a record on there since 2011, I still tour with them and they're still all my friends and we still do work together because I still have records that are on the label. But first and foremost, my relationship with them, I think, started from friendship. And I think us being friends, they were able to kind of hear my development. My development as a rapper was really quick, where it's like 1 minute I just wasn't tripping. The next minute we were making demos. People were like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, we want to hear more of this guy. What the fuck? Who is this? What's this soul position thing? Y'all, what is that? And so they were right there at ground zero when I started that journey, kind of coming into my own, and I consider them friends and family. You know, it's like I'm not one of these guys who will leave a situation and talk bad about people because like number one, I think it's just unprofessional, but two, it's like those are people that with or without rap, I would fuck with them. And so I have a great deal of respect for them. And I know it goes both ways for me and every other artist on that label. You know, I have a rapport, an actual friendship with. So, like, that's first and foremost. And then obviously the music thing, you know, we're all making music that kind of it creates this thing that we're trying to create and put out there, and they allowed me to have a big platform to do that, you know. And to this day, you know, like I never had what a lot of people had with it. Some people had, like, I never had like a quote unquote record deal with Rhymesayers. You know, some people have deals, they have paperwork and multi-page contracts and all that. I never had none of that. I was
Mm,
always free to come and go as I pleased because it was always family, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And long story short, that's like my relationship with them, you know.
No, that's what's up. I appreciate you closing with like, family, because that's definitely the type of relationship it sounds like, rather than like you're saying, not all that contractual. And that's one of the things as we look at, you know what I'm saying, even just, just for instance, a label that, at least everybody, mostly knows nowadays, and you see what's going on inside these labels, like just talking about like Top Dog, right? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like I'm a big Top Dog fan, been since, because I grew up in LA. And so, you know what I mean? Like, anything coming out of LA like that, especially something, solid as Top Dog Entertainment, I'm going to be like, okay, let me put a lens on this and look real closely at what's happened over the years. And you see, like, there's a little bit, I feel like it was earlier, at the earlier times, it was a little bit more of that, like, kind of like family aspect, like the whole
yes,
group was family. And then over time, as time passes, it just changes up, right? And
it
it's a little
does.
bit more the business that you see when you see even just like one of my favorite rappers, Reason, got signed to him and then left him. You know what I mean? And so it's just like you're thinking like, okay, there's a little bit less of that family aspect over time, and more like that business aspect is what Punch, you know what I mean, was kind of, just like kind of, it was just move. It looked like it moved towards that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure that even at like just for instance TDE, there's still that bit of a family aspect, but it's also a business. It's still a business. Even Rhymesayers too. But I like what you're talking about, where you're explaining that family layer of it that's still there, even.
Yeah, and it's different for different artists, right? Like I consider myself like a first or, you know, I was one of the Soul Position was really the first group that they signed outside of Minneapolis. Prior to Soul Position, it was just Slug, Idea, Abilities, and Musab. You know what I mean? And or beyond, he went at that time, the Headshots crew, their Headshots crew. So like then Soul Position was the first people outside of that they rocked with. So very much it was, you know, like family at that point, like dudes we really rocked with. But once you get into those second and third generations of artists getting signed to that label, it's not the same for them. With
Hmm.
some of them, it may just be business, right? Like they might just have a deal. And
Right.
when the business don't make sense, they stop talking. You know what I mean? Or they don't
Hmm.
rock with that person, or they talk bad about that person. But for me, I was like, I'm thankful that I never had that kind of thing with them, you know. And it does change, you know, the longer you stay in the game, the more you have at stake. So like certain labels, if TDE been around for coming on 15 years or whatever it is, the next thing you know, it's like, oh well, now we have this distro in place. Now we have this in place. We have these things in place where the performance of the artist is more important now, you know. So we have to stress the business now because if the numbers don't make sense, we got these relationships that are at jeopardy, and the artist is going to be disappointed if they don't do quote unquote Kendrick numbers. Maybe they get mad. This is the things that happens when you run a label. Like me running my own label, I saw it firsthand. Like if you want to be resented, run a label. Every you know, whether you right or wrong, every artist is gonna look at you when things don't go their way. It's
Right.
just, you know what I mean? Like you'll get resented. Even your boys, you be like, damn, you know what I mean? Like, bro, you know you ain't do nothing to promote that record. Why you mad at me, bro? Like, really?
Right.
Like,
No, totally. With that being said, I wanted to ask you a quick question about Weightless. So
yeah.
you formed Weightless yourself. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep,
And
like
so,
me and
and
all my friends did initially, but then it eventually came just my thing.
right, right. And so that was kind of like at the initial outset of when you guys were making music. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was during the 90s.
Yep, yep. So we started, I got my first sampler in 97. So I had it on layaway in a pawn shop and got it at a pawn at the beginning of 97. And that's when I started really making beats. And that a few months later, I got a little 8-track recorder, tape recorder, and then we started making songs at that point. And then that following year, we made our first record and our first tape. So yeah, I mean, at the beginning of Weightless, it was more like, we were a crew and everybody wanted to play shows, which is always the thing. Hey, let's jump on it. And I was like, we're not playing those shows unless we have a tape or album or something. I was like, so if y'all want to do that, we can do that, but we're not going to be out here doing this stuff for nothing to follow up on. And everybody was like, all right, how do we do that? I was like, well, how about you? Everybody put in $200, and then we'll figure out this shit. And so literally everybody came with their $200, and that started, Weightless. We all just got some tapes, and we sold the tapes, and we got some shirts, and we showed that, then we got this, took that money, put it into some CDs, and then we had some money to spend on, okay, we got gas money to go play a show in Louisville or Chicago or whatever. And we would just keep doing that and doing that and doing that. And then eventually things went well. And some guys came and went, and I just stuck with it because it was more just, it's more for me. Everybody ain't supposed to be doing this, like you learn over time. It's not for everybody, right? And so,
Right.
and that's not like a diss or insult to other people, but some people have shit that's just like more important to them, or that this is just not, it could never be their thing. Maybe they're not built for it. But for me, it was always my thing. So I just stuck with it the longest.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you explaining that too. And I'm probably, as you're saying that, I'm looking over at the homie Case over here, and I'm like, man, that reminds me a little bit of LCA and what I've heard of, how these guys were, killing it way back and just, making it happen, literally, you know what I mean, just in the community here in Humboldt, just, just taking it like just doing the best everybody can do and just everybody doing a part and making it happen. Even from one of the stories that Case told when he was on the podcast a couple years ago. You know what I mean? They would have, parties where they're all, like, I mean, like dubbing multiple copies of tapes and then like filling CDs, you know what I mean? Like filling
Oh yeah.
CDs and having those ready, for after the shows and everything like that.
Yeah,
That's
same
really
thing.
dope. That's really dope. And then you guys also came in at the interesting time where it's like towards the end of the 90s where the medium started to slowly change. It was slowly in that process of changing to more digital, right? It had went from
Yes.
tapes, to in the middle of it. Well, CDs were out for a little
CDs.
bit
Yep.
longer than that, but I'm saying, tapes to CDs and then the digital. And so you guys were right in the middle of it all. Even was making it sound like you're talking about with the 8-track, you guys were using tapes and everything too, though.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of things that kind of I look back now, it's like we never had any like real stable mediums. You know what I mean? It was like you're saying, we came in, tapes was kind of on their way out, but we were still selling them. CDs was in, so we did that for a minute. Then CDs kind of went out, vinyl kind of came in, and then they thought vinyl was gonna be dead around the mid 2000s. Everybody thought vinyl was gonna be out of here, and it was all digital and MP3s, and now it's like vinyl's dumb popular again and CDs still sell on some novelty shit, and streaming is just the big thing. It's like we've never had one medium stick around long enough to get used to it. It's like it's constantly changing.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting landscape, and it's been this digital thing for a long time now. At least I don't know, like maybe just say like 15 years. It's been pretty much like almost exclusively digital. But you know what I mean. There are still cats that they know with this whole streaming age, the streaming money ain't it. You know what I
No.
mean? Unless you're like, unless you got like a smash or something like that, you know what I mean? So then the way to really make money is merchandising that stuff. So you have, even for the connoisseurs and collectors, have some CDs or even nowadays like tapes have come kind of cassettes have come back a little bit, at least for those collectors and connoisseurs, you know what I mean? So some cats even up here in Humboldt County will have, you know what I mean, tapes ready, you know what I mean, when they drop releases and sell those for 5 or 10 or 15 or $20. That way you're actually still monetizing the work, and then that's fueling the continuation of the process and people being able to get their creativity out. So it's definitely an interesting landscape that a lot of artists, that have been, like I say, even up here, you know what I mean, been doing it for, 10, 15, maybe 20 years now, have seen it all and had to, ride those waves out and,
Hmm.
still just kind of make those right decisions to stay on top. And so with that being said, with let me see here. So I wanted to get into Vessel because that's gonna if when y'all are hearing this, it might already be out.
Yeah.
But so now you produce that? You produced at least
Yes,
some
I
of the
produced the
tracks on
whole
that album?
album.
The whole
Yep.
album. Oh,
Yep.
heck yeah.
Yep.
See, that's what's up. I can't wait for that one. And so it looks like from what I got on this on the sheet here, about July 29th or so, that should be coming out.
Yep. Yep. Tuesday, July 29th is the actual album release date.
Oh,
I
that's
still do
dope.
Tuesdays. I don't do Fridays.
I was about to say that's dope. That's how it used to be. Some of these younger cats really don't know. They're used to Fridays being the new
Yeah.
music days, but Tuesday used to that was how it was, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought about it. I mean, I've been really vocal about that ever since they changed it, right? Like Tuesday used to be you would go to the record store on Tuesdays, you knew you had the new releases, and it was like a social kind of event too. You knew where to go every fucking Tuesday. But what I don't like about it now is like it doesn't changing it to Fridays only makes sense for like major labels and really big artists. Like, because if you look at how most music is promoted, it's promoted on the internet. The best days on the internet are like Monday through Thursday. The worst days on the internet are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Right.
So I'm like, why are you dropping music on the slowest day on the internet? And then you
Mhm.
have the two deadest days right after that, Saturday and Sunday. By the time you get to Monday, everybody forgot you dropped.
Right. That's actually probably a part of it. I know exactly what you mean. It's really interesting nowadays, and cats, you know what I mean. You got to consider that too. And I like, just for instance, you know what I mean. I think it was Tyler's, whether it was Chromacopia or the album he brought out before that. Like I think it was he dropped it on like either a Monday or a Tuesday as well. And so it's just like
Yeah.
resetting people, getting people away from that Friday mentality. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Tuesday's better because if you drop on a Monday or Tuesday, you got 4 full days of the maximum internet traffic and activity to take advantage of. And yeah, it doesn't make any sense for people to drop on Fridays. I mean, if I'm not on a major, I'm like a mega star, I wouldn't drop on a Friday. It just doesn't make sense. So I never change Tuesdays. I'm like Tuesdays forever.
That's what's up. Yeah. No,
You know?
totally. I at least know that a lot of a lot of people, are going to be consuming music, like you said, earlier in the week. By the end of the week, what I
Yeah.
mean, people are either tired or, Friday night you're gonna go out to the club and they're gonna be playing, you know what I mean, like stuff they're gonna be playing in the club or at parties and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So that earlier part of the week's definitely the best time to get that out there and when people are gonna be consuming it more. So that makes perfect sense. Um, with that being said, so talk to us about Vessel. So again, we were probably we were recording this a little bit before, but
Yeah.
at this point in time, it's going to be probably out for people. So let them know what your thoughts are on the album.
Yeah. Well, Vessel is technically my first full-length album since 2018. So 2018, I released my last full-length album. It was called Two-Headed Monster, and I did a big tour. And that Two-Headed Monster tour was like at that point was like my most successful tour. And I was like, oh shit, this is better than all the other ones. I got to get back in the lab and get busy. But on a Two-Headed Monster tour, it was just me and my DJ, and we would play, 5, 6 shows a week, but we would dig like 4 or 5 days a week. So whatever city we was in, or random city we was stopping through, we was digging. I came home with maybe like 500 records,
Oh
from
wow.
digging around the United States. And so I was like, yep, immediately getting back in the lab and started working on Vessel, finished Vessel around the end of 2019, beginning of, yeah, about the end of 2019, started planning the tour, top 2020, COVID hit, shut everything down.
Right, right.
The whole tour
Slow
got
everything down.
tossed to the fucking, wayside. Everybody in the venues stopped answering their phones, emails. It was just a ghost town for the music industry, for the foreseeable future. And the next 2 years was just bad. 2020 was bad, 2021 was bad. by the end of 2021, I was like, because I was just waiting, like, okay, maybe it'll come back at the end of this year. Maybe touring will come. Nah, I didn't come back, man. Nothing came back. And eventually I just was like, okay, I've been sitting here for like 2.5, almost 3 years. I about ran out of money. I need to go get a
Right.
job, So I'm gonna go get a job real quick, and then whatever happens, happens. Maybe I come back, maybe I don't. So I disappeared for like 2 years, about a year and a half. 22, I was like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna just go get my CDL. So I went and got my CDL to drive a truck, and I drove a truck for about a year.
Hmm.
Then about a year after that, I was still watching the industry, but I wasn't really participating. I wasn't really doing nothing. I was like, okay, let me. So then I bought a truck. So now had started my own trucking company. I bought a semi truck, and I did that for about 6, 8 months. And then I had a period in that where like I had a truck breakdown. I was sitting there like, damn, what do I do? And then I started answering some of my emails. My truck was broke down for about 2 months because they couldn't figure out what was going wrong with it. It kept getting sent from different shops and it was waxing me.
Mm.
And I was like, man, let me answer some of these rap emails. So I just started answering emails. Hey man, we need you to do this feature. Hey man, we need some beats. Hey man, where you been? You want to come on here? You want to do this? You want to go? I was like, all right. I did that shit for like a month or two while my truck was in shop. And I was like, yo, I'm making more money doing this than I was with the truck. Why not go
Crazy.
back to music? Maybe it's time. And
Hmm.
I was like, okay, it's time then. So 2020, that was started 24. I came back in 24, doing music full time. And but I didn't feel good about releasing that record because I didn't know what the industry was doing. I had been away for almost 6 years. So I was like, I'm just gonna put out a 4 song EP. So I put out a 4 song EP last year called Falling Down. And then I put out an instrumental record last fall. Just testing the waters, just seeing if people are ready. And then the response was really strong. And I'm like, okay, it's time to finally put out Vessel. And so I went back in the lab, updated some things, tinker with some things like, okay, because, I've been listening to it for a while. Let me just change this, flip this, do this with this now and make it like what I consider to be like perfect. Where it's like, nah, this is a end to end listen, flawless. Any concerns I had about it are clear. And like let's get it out. And so that's where the record came from. It was like started and finished before the pandemic, and then everything just went bad, and then I just kind of just said forget this record for a while, left the music industry for like 18 months, came back and was like, oh, I think it's time. you know so yeah.
That's dope. I can't wait for that album. That's interesting too, though, because I mean, obviously, everybody, even a lot of these cats, all the cats up here doing hip hop, it was totally COVID, shut everything down for that. At least that, like you said, 2 years, where everybody had to take a reset, and so it was horrible to see like some of the cats that were doing really well right up
Yes.
to COVID, and then it's like, oh man, like it's like we're having to almost start from scratch in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it killed everybody's momentum. That was the hardest thing because there were guys here locally, and me and some friends talk about it, that, like you're saying, they were really bubbling right before COVID, starting to draw and bring out bodies. COVID hit. They haven't been seen since. They quit altogether, never came back, disappeared, and they just moved on with their life and never looked back. And it's like, wow, this thing really took a lot of people out of the game, man. It ruined a lot of the entertainment industry, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Venues getting closed down as well, so
Right, right. Even right now, it can be hard depending on where you're at. You know what I mean? If you're in a bigger city, that would be one thing, but some of the smaller areas, like, fortunately up here, in Humboldt County, it's really art centric. There's a lot of money that gets put into the arts, whether it's from government money that comes down for, grants and stuff like that, even all the way up to just the people and putting in money into the niches of art that they're into. Like this is a very, artsy place. And so
yeah.
fortunately, a lot of these venues, some venues did shut down. We've always had this kind of like flux of like there's there can be like there's old venues that I can think of years back that got shut down and they're not here anymore. But there's always going to be here in Humboldt County these few spots that have stayed around, fortunately, consistently. Even they did slow down with COVID, but some of them are back and everything like that. Things
Yep.
change, but there's typically always going to be a little bit of opportunity out there. People just got to jump on it, and it's but it's definitely a different landscape, and I'm sure in a lot of places across the country after COVID took everything down. So that makes sense. Um, And so that was interesting. So you were saying you were your own owner operator on the truck.
Yeah, yep. I have my own authority, I own my own truck and everything. So yeah, I did that for about 7, 8 months.
Okay.
And it was different. I was like, it was way more work to being a company driver. So it was like, whew, this is a lot of work right here. And but I liked it. I just didn't. It's just expensive, man. Compared to rap, like trucking is so expensive. I don't think the average rapper has no idea what the invoices and the bills look like on the trucking side, man. It's just you got to be really prepared for that. And
Yeah.
the thing about this is like, oh, I can have a slow month at this, but I don't lose money.
Right. It's all money being made mostly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, the money's a little slow, but whatever. Money's coming in. Trucking is like a slow month. You out of here, man. You might not survive it, you know?
Right. Right.
And so but yeah, I still got my truck. I just ain't drove it in like a year.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that, Kay? Parked in the garage. Case was saying you still got the truck just parked in the garage, ready to go, kind of thing, or
Not in my garage. It's in a truck yard though. There's like
oh,
a
okay.
big truck yard, like maybe 2 miles from my house, where a bunch of truck drivers park their trucks, and like it was basically for that, security and security gate and shit. Where it's mostly a lot of guys who ain't driving. What I found is like a lot of owner operators, when the business gets slow, they'll just park their truck and do something else for a couple of years since they own it. And then if things get better, they come back, start their authority again and start driving again.
Right, right, right. No, I
Yeah.
know. Economically, it's like, it might be there might be a lull time, and then there might be a peak at some point, and then that might be a fruitful time to go back into and, take your truck out of that storage and
Yeah.
make some shipments happen. Um, Silas, so now I wanted to get into, because you got this tour. It's going to be
Hmm.
it's a 40 city tour you're doing for this Vessel album. And so it looks to me on the sheet that I got, you got August 1st, you're going to be doing it in Dayton.
Yep. Yep.
Dope. And then August 2nd, you're gonna be in your hometown, Columbus.
Yeah, that's the album release show right there. Yep. And then after that we go to like Midwest. I think we start in that week we'll be going to I'm sorry, the week after that, the 13th, I think we start in Chicago. Then I think we got Green Bay, Wisconsin. Then I think we go to Minneapolis. Then we start working our way to like Duluth. Then I think we'll be like North Dakota, South Dakota, work our way west until we're in like Pacific Northwest. And I think then we'll be get into like Seattle, Portland, Eugene, um, all that whole Bend, Oregon,
Humboldt here.
Humboldt. Yep. And then start working our way down to Cali. And then I think we have 3 or 4 California shows. We're supposed to be doing High Road Day.
Mm.
They haven't announced it, but I spoke to them several months ago about it. And as long as the event happens, I'll be on the event and I'll be there for that in Oakland.
Oh, that's
Um,
dope. Shout out to Dell and the High Road crew out there.
yeah, and then working our way down, 4 dates in Arizona, 3 dates in Arizona, 2 in Nevada, only one Colorado date on this joint. We got Salt Lake City, Boise, maybe one other Idaho show. Um, we're trying to do 3 or 4 Florida shows.
Mm.
Florida's always really good for me. Yeah, just trying to do it. I'm trying to do at least 40. If I can get it to 50, I'll do 50. I'm just like, it's been so long since I've done a tour this long. I'm like, I'm excited again. Like, let's do it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
No, I'm really glad to see it. I'm glad that we talked about the whole COVID thing slowing things down because right now it's really, everybody's moving at this point. Things are back on. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like now's the time to make sure you're getting your brand out there, moving right, spreading it to different areas. And that's one of the things too, between what I do for the community, just kind of helping support people with this podcast. And then me and my homies do a FM radio show every other week where we just kind of give a little bit of infrastructure to the people around here. And we just all and in Case too, Case does a lot of support for these artists out here, just showing people the right things to do. Like this is what you guys guys should be doing. And you got to really, around here, the cats around here, they'll just be like, okay, well, let me just, I'll just focus around here. And it's like, okay, at some point though, you got to branch out. You got to do shows in other areas to start to get
Yes.
other audiences and reach other demographics. You know what I mean? And so
Yes.
that's a part of the game. And so, no, I can't wait for this tour. I can't wait for this album, and definitely can't wait for you guys to come here. So you're gonna be with DJ Detox, right?
Yep. Yep. That's my touring DJ. Yep. He's from
Dope.
Columbus too. So he's done maybe my last 3 or 4 tours with me.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Dope. That's what's up. Something else I got on the sheet here too, and I just want to let people know, especially these cats that are going to be coming to this Humboldt show. I feel like I'm not going to put you on the. Obviously, I'm not putting you on the hook for anything, but I'm just saying I feel like some of these cats coming to this show are going to be in for a real treat because if I got this right, you play multiple instruments.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. Yep. Yep. And I usually definitely bring like the trombone out at some point, on stage if I can, and then play some keys as well. I'm gonna try to bring the 404 too, just on some beat making kind of shit too on this tour,
I
you
was
know.
about to ask way earlier when you were talking about had the sampler in layaway and everything like that. Was that a Roland?
Nah, that was the one I had in layaway. It was an Ensoniq EPS, the
Okay.
original EPS.
I know exactly the unit you're talking about. Yep.
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 And I updated that one and got Ensoniq EPS 16 plus, and then went from that to the MPC 2000, you
Okay.
know.
Okay. Moved over
Yep.
to a Kai, but now you with the 404. You're a four. I don't want to say you
Uh
a kid, but you a 404 kid. Cause
I use the 404 I use it just for live shows and playing beats. I make all my beat. I'm an Ableton guy. When it comes to
Mm,
making beats, I'm all about Ableton. I used Reason for a long time. And then when I got to Ableton, I was like, oh, this is it for me. This does everything I need. And so I like the 404 just for like the portability, battery operated. I did a tour in Asia in November, and I just threw the 404 in a book bag and no issues. You know what I mean? Just
right.
running around, didn't need a bunch of crap, plug it in every night, battery operated, which is good over there because, sometimes the power voltage is different.
Mm,
And if you can plug the wrong thing into the wrong outlet and fry it. And so my homie in Thailand was like, yo, we got to figure out this voltage thing. And I was like, actually, I'm just going to battery operate everything I bring on stage. He was like, thank you.
there you go. That's really smart, actually. And then yeah, let them just plug that into the mixer how they want to and power their
E-
mixer how they want to.
Exactly. So I was like, if I brick my laptop or my 404, I'm gonna be sick out here, man. I'm gonna
Right.
start crying. You
No,
know?
that's really smart. Um, and so yeah, like there's a few other things I wanted to ask about. And so when I was listening to your catalog, I know that one of the big ones out there, and I don't want to just put this out because I know it's one of the big ones, but I really definitely enjoy Persevere. That was
Yeah.
one. You know, one of the things I noticed too, listening to your music, you know what I mean? You're like you were talking about earlier. It's I don't want to say eclectic or anything like that, but I hear boom bap, and then
Hmm.
I hear multiple different types of just hip hop and what you're making. That shows a lot of versatility.
Yeah.
Because some of these producers out here, I'm not you can talk about anybody in specific, but you'll have producers that have like this kind of signature sound, right? And so
Yes.
that's cool. You know what I mean? Even some of them might be able to make, you know what I mean? I mean, I love DJ Mustard, just for instance, you know what I mean? He's got
Hmm.
a bit of a signature sound in his West Coast,
Yes.
you know what I mean? And that's cool and everything like that. I'm not dogging Mustard without a doubt, but I'm just saying, like, having some versatility that shows, um, I don't want to say more talent, but I got respect for it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't necessarily think I have a signature sound because like I'm a student of all the sounds, right? So like I try to have a signature sound on a specific album, right? So my first solo record was titled 1988. For months or a year, I just sat around and listened to albums that came out in 1988. And then I was like, I want to make a record that sounds like something that came out in 88, you know? My Adventures in Counterculture record, I was like, I want this to sound like a super eclectic record that's made by somebody who grew up. There's stuff that sounds like 80s on there. There's stuff that sounds like, singer-songwriter, folky kind of guitars on there. There's like indie rock sounding stuff on there. The song called So Alive, with guitars, and I played the keytar on stage when I was touring with that joint.
Oh,
And it was
wow.
just like, yeah, and it's like you to me, I'm a fan of just like as a producer, I just like studying certain styles and trying to create them. So each album has a little bit of that in it. We're like, nah, this record feels like that specific thing because that's what I wanted it to. But the next one won't sound or feel like that one, you know?
Hmm. No, that's super dope. Absolutely. I've seen that, and I'm not gonna sit here and say, right, like let's just for instance, like one of the examples I'm bringing up, I'm not gonna sit here and say like the game was biting off you, but I've seen cats do that, right? Because I know that it was however many years ago, probably like 12 years ago or something like that. The game brought out is like I think it was like 1992, and so it was
Yeah.
like this album where it's like a bunch, where it sounded like it was coming out of 1992 and everything like
Yep.
that. But you're talking about not just even out of one genre, like just kind of even different sounds from that year.
Yes. Yes.
And we're coming up on the 20th anniversary if we hadn't already passed it in 1988. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. Yep. That was I think that record came out March 29th, 2005. That record came out. And so we did the 20-year anniversary like a couple months ago, but I did a 20-year anniversary show here in Columbus where played the record in its entirety front to back, you know. And that show was really, really special, which is so it was like packed, almost sold the show out. And like people had flown in from other parts of the country to see the show who were huge fans of that album. And it was great, really great. And I'm glad I did it because I wasn't one of those guys who going into it was like, oh yeah, yeah, do anniversaries for albums. I always was like, I didn't understand that people like to see it. And then like my guy Illogic did one for his Celestial Clockwork record the year before, and I was like, oh man, I need to think about this. This is powerful. Like I was in the crowd just as a fan. I produced a record and it still hit me really heavy just being there. Like I knew it was like he did it with a band. They relearned the songs. I was like, it
Oh,
really moved me.
wow.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is really sick. And so it's like, I should do this next year because my record is 20 years. And so yeah, that record is very special. And it was one of those things too, because it's like not just the show, but it was like I was able to get rights back to that record. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So like that record is now mine again. And so it's like it's not just the anniversary. It's like, oh, moving forward, this is your joint. You get 100% of this now. You know what I mean? Like you own it, you control it. So it's like a big milestone for that as well for me.
Dope. No, that's what's up. I love that. And I hope that, you know what I mean? I know it's been the 20 years and everything like that. I couldn't say what year you want to do that, but there's something to that when you're able to, just go back and play an album, straight on through and you really like you're talking about, you really touch the fans. Like the fans are like,
Yes.
oh man, this is a great experience. I even just one of the ones I went to like that was one of my favorites is Lupe Fiasco, and it was the 15th anniversary of the Cool.
Yeah.
It's like 2 years ago, and I went to
Mhm.
that down at the Warfield in San Francisco. And I mean, he like you said, he had a live band like you're talking about and everything. And there's just, I mean, everybody just had a blast. I mean, and you really connect with your base doing
Yes.
that. So that's a really smart
Yes.
move right there. I hope you end up making that happen. I'm gonna try to make it to one of those shows if you do that for 1988 for sure.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Heck yeah. So other thing I wanted to do too, so like I was saying earlier in the podcast for the audience here, Blueprints coming to Humboldt County with DJ Detox, gonna be doing a show August 29th. The doors are going to be opening at 8 p.m. This is going to be at Outer Space in Arcata. Everybody around here knows Outer Space, knows it's a dope little joint. You know what I mean? Right off the plaza. And so, tell your friends about this. If you know people up at the school at Cal Poly, you know what I mean, Humboldt, tell them about this. You know what I mean? They're going to be able to walk right down from the school, right off the plaza, and come out to the show. It's going to be a great time. Let me tell you what, I can already tell. And if you've, been listening to this podcast episode, you can tell yourself too. This is going to be one you don't want to miss. So,
Hell yeah.
yeah. And then, so the couple other things, I just had maybe like a couple other questions for you. Um, let's see here. So I wanted to make sure one thing I definitely wanted to talk about was the fact that you've written, I think, 4 books at this point. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think either 4 or 5. Yep, it's pretty close. It might be it's 5 actually. Yep, it's 5.
5. Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
I really like that because, you know what I mean? It's just this way to connect with more people to get, whether it's something that you might be teaching or,
Hmm.
stories out there. But talk to us about your books because from what I understand, they're pretty educational.
Yeah, I did the first book I did was called The Making of Adventures in Counterculture. That was like we don't get liner notes for albums no more. And so I was like, man, I want to write a book where each chapter is about a song because this record is so different that I think it would explain it to the people who are really into it and make them appreciate it even more and just catalog this time. So that was my first book that I ever wrote. And so that's one that was like a companion piece to that record. Then after that, I was blogging a lot then. This was like before podcasts were really cracking. Blogging was remember it was like
Oh
yeah, you
yeah,
had to have a blog back then. So
right.
I was blogging a lot around that time. And so but I realized in touring that everybody wasn't reading blogs, but they didn't even know about it. So I was like I should take the best most popular writings I have on my blog and make a book out of those. And
Mm.
so my second book was called Word is Blog. And it was just like a book of like all my best blogs, some funny blogs, some like serious shit. It also like chronicled like right when I got sober and stopped drinking. So it's got all these things I wrote about sobriety and thing in there. And it's mixed with like a bunch of weird tour stories as well, like random things happening and funny ass just stories. But that was my second book. My third book was a book called What a Night, a show about the worst shows of my career.
Oh
And so
wow.
that book is just straight comedy because it's just all just funny stories and bizarre stories about like the absolute worst shows I had. Like, for example, but it's funny. Like people love the book because it's just like immediately fun. One of the stories is like accidentally or performing in a place that you didn't know it was a strip club until strippers came out and started giving people lap dances while you was on stage. You was just like, wait a minute. They told me this used to be a strip club. It's too late. And then like people in the crowd getting mad because the people at the strip club don't want to hear the kind of shit we do. It's not stripper music. You know what I mean? So people in the crowd was mad, and then the fans who came out to see me at this strip club was arguing with them, and then they almost got into a fight in there. It was like crazy. So that's just one of the stories. But the book is full of stories like that, where it's like just like funny but just awful shows. Because I played a lot of shows. That was my third book. The fourth book I wrote during a pandemic. That was when like so we started kind of getting into just like helping artists at that point. So I got my fourth book is called The 10 Traits of Successful Hip Hop Artists. And that's just like me studying all of these artists that I find that are amazing or that's like super successful and telling the stories about what makes them successful that's not so obvious, you know.
Mm.
And with some of them, it may be the fact that they were able to, train themselves to stay in the house for long periods, maybe long-term vision is something, so like I tell a story in here about the RZA and the Wu-Tang and how he basically told everybody in the Wu-Tang like just give me 5 years, I'll make all y'all millionaires, you know and everybody in the group was like, man, I don't know about this, but then they were like, you know what, let's do it. And he didn't know he was a millionaire till after that because he just stayed so dedicated and locked in, and by the time he let his head up, the Wu Tang was like a worldwide phenomenon. Because he told me, so we said we're gonna have the number one record in the country, and I'm gonna make all y'all millionaires if y'all give me 5 years. And he did it, like in like 4.5 years. And so there's a lot of stories like that where I talk about, like Murs is in the book. I
Mm.
write about evidence in the book. I write
Oh,
about
dope.
Rock Marciano, like guys like this. I would go through if I couldn't interview them directly, I would just go through and pour through like hours of their interviews and like transcribe them and just really learn like the things that they would say and talk about that people wouldn't talk about. Like that's why he's successful. And so I wrote that book for like listeners of our podcast who, think that talent is enough. And it's like talent is not enough. Like read this book and you'll find out that like the guy you think is just successful because he's the most talented, it actually isn't just that. Yeah, he's talented, but he's got these other things that he does that allow him to be successful no matter what. That was my fourth book. And then
What's
my
the, real
fifth book,
quick, real quick? What's
yep,
the name of that book? 'Cause
it's
I'm not.
called
I'm not gonna hold
yeah,
you. I'm gonna probably buy that book as soon as we
yeah,
finish this interview because that
yep.
sounds dope.
It's called The 10 Traits of Successful Hip Hop Artists.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
you can get it on my website, weightless.net. if you want
Dope.
to. So, yep. So weightless.net. And it's there. Yeah. And if you order it, I'll sign it or whatever. If anybody listens to this and wants to order it, yeah, I'll sign a copy. Just put it in the box. Say, sign it for me, please. But yeah, that book, really, really great reception on that one. Like I got that was my best performing book. But I released that was during pandemic when I released that book. And
Mm,
then I released another book. This was also during pandemic after that, and it was called The Social Media Cheat Code. And that was more for people who listen to our podcast, artists who are, up and coming, to kind of help them not be so afraid of social media, to find ways to engage people without feeling like they're like, embarrassing themselves or just chasing trends. And so I just wrote like 12 or 14 things that I do when I see other people do, with case studies and things like that in it, to support it and just kind of give them the principles. And that book has been really well received too. And so that book kind of led me also to like, because I was starting to coach artists as well. So I coach artists on just like how to do this. And so that book was like a companion to kind of help me just establish that and have something that showed what I knew. So that was
that's
my
what's
fifth
up.
book.
That's dope. I really like just these concepts that you're talking about for these books. They're really thoughtful concepts. A lot of the times, and I mean, it just may be, how it goes with, what I'm saying? It's probably like a company that comes to, you know what I mean, an artist, a hip hop artist I'm talking about specifically, and says, all right, let's just try this type of book. And a lot of times it'll be like maybe like not on an autobiography, but a biography type of thing,
Yep.
or like a biopic kind of mindset of a concept. But these books you're talking about, like there's some real thoughtfulness in the concepts of these books. That's dope.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always wanted to do something where, the longer you're in it, the more, it's funny because like when you're in it early, you're just like, oh, I'm just trying to get mine and I'm just trying to like, make my mark. And then eventually somebody calls you like a OG or like a you're like, damn, I'm an OG now. Damn, oh, you a legend. You're like, what? When did this shit happen? I thought I was like y'all. They're like, nah, man, you already successful. We trying to be like you now. And so it's like, I should help people. I should share what I know. And so that's really where the podcast came from. It's like our desire to like help people and share with artists what no one shared with us,
Mhm.
you know?
And that's the podcast you're talking about with the Logic that you do with.
Yep. It's called Super Duty Tough Work. Yep. So that's our podcast. So it's basically every week we talk about, things in the industry, not in an industry. We talk about like how to be a better artist,
Mm.
how to do better business, how to have better whatever soft skills, how to navigate the industry, how to work. It's basically like a mentoring session for people who don't have mentors in the game. That's what it is, and we take those topics and, we have challenges every year. We'll have like, we call them discipline challenges. We have like a 90-day discipline challenge where it's like, okay, what do you want to do? And we set goals, whether it's losing 10 pounds, whether it's like, finishing your album, whether it's getting your certification in some, field in IT, things like that. Like we have people who listen, who participate. And then at the end of these challenges, they call in and leave us voice messages and we play them on the show, our results episodes and things like that. And it just becomes a community of people who just want to get better and do better work. That's really what it's about.
That's super dope right there. I feel like there's huge value in that because I know, just even around here, there's a ton of cats that need that type of information. Like I know, I'm not even trying to make a pun about it, but like you're laying like a bit of a blueprint out for people. You know what I
Yes.
mean? To like let them know like this is what you should be doing. And I know there's a lot of cats around here in Humboldt that would benefit from that. And I know
Yeah.
Humboldt's not the only place where people would be benefiting from that. So I really like hearing that. I'm gonna be tuning in regularly to that one.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think you would dig it, man. Like I'm trying to think what our last episode, one of our last episodes was about like ticket prices, how ticket prices of concerts have went up like 40% since 2018. And, we read this study and this research about it and all the things that go into that. The one before then was about, I think we talked about some quotes with the group Little Brother, how things they were saying about how they felt like touring was like a 360 to the deal. It's like, we kind of disagree with so many things. So we kind of broke down that interview and gave our experience on touring and how some things work. It just was really educational for people who wanted to learn about touring and how venues view talent and how the whole machine works when you see an artist on stage, what goes into it. So those are like some of our more recent episodes.
That's dope. And you said it was called Super Duty Tough Work.
Yep, yep, super duty tough work.
Oh man, I'm definitely gonna be tuning in. Blueprint, I really appreciate you doing this. One, I just want real quick, just to make it as promo as I can be, right?
Yep.
Just make sure that anybody listening to this episode, don't forget, Blueprint is going to be doing a show here in Humboldt County. It's going to be on August 29th at Outer Space Arcata. Doors open at 8 p.m. We also got the homies Knack One and Ra on that show. So I mean, we got between Blueprint, the lyricism that he's bringing, and both of these cats on this show, Knack One and Ra. I mean, they are very dope minds. Knack One is one of the best freestylers that I know. He's one of the best lyricists that I know, and same thing with Ra. And so y'all are gonna really be in for a real treat August 29th at Outer Space. Make sure you get tickets for that as soon as you
Yep.
can and come out, support, show love for the scene out here, and enjoy a good time. And so, um, I think let me just look at my notes one more time real quick, but I think I kind of hit on a lot right there with it. Yeah, if I was to ask you Blueprint, because you were just talking about this, you like we said, you're doing a podcast where you're actually doing this, and so I don't want you to repeat, you know what I mean, anything. But what I kind of always ask artists on the podcast, um, if you were to drop some knowledge down to some young artists that were coming up right now, what would be the main thing you would try to get through to them?
Uh, I would say, probably tell them two things. I say number one, build your skills. First, like being really, really good at what you do opens a lot of doors. And sometimes you don't know until you get good at something and people start, oh, we mess with him because they're just so good. You know, that's number one. Have like be dedicated to your craft, like dedicated. Like you should just be, you should be consumed with like, how do I become better? How do I become the best at this thing? Because not just like I want to have fun, not just, this is a cool thing to do when my friends are around. Like if you really, really want to make your mark, you have to go at it like it's all you want. Like that's it. Like that's your one thing. Like everybody has one thing. You know what I mean? Like we sit around and watch basketball players and they're doing their one thing. That's their one thing. They decided they're like 10, 11 years old. It's basketball for me. And that's where they got. And there's people who make apps. IT was their thing. That's their one thing. And so they do it well. They become dedicated to it. My advice to artists is put away the distractions, you know, because we live in an era where there are more distractions than ever. My era was easier because there was no social media, there was no internet to like scroll and doom scroll and kill time and all that shit. So we had we didn't have phones to distract us 24/7. We would get in the lab and just listen to records for hours looking for loops and drums and shit. And the people who are able to dedicate themselves wholly to their craft are going to be the ones who are successful. The people who just sit around and do it when it's cool or when they're inspired or when their friends are around or when they quote unquote feel like it, they're going to always be behind and trying to understand why those other people are getting a better, stronger response. So my first thing was be dedicated to your craft. Like decide that that's the one thing you want and spend like all your free time doing that. And
Hmm.
then you'll find fun. You'll find your social group inside of that. You'll find your relationships inside that. You'll find a support system that you're looking for when you're chasing that thing. Because then you'll stop complaining about people who are quote unquote haters or quote unquote holding you back or quote unquote, dead weight. Because more dedicated you become, you're going to start attracting people who are the same.
Hmm.
Seriousness attracts serious people. You know what I mean? And so
Right.
pretty soon you won't even complain about that. The second thing I would say is like embrace your community, embrace your scene. Don't try to do everything by yourself. Recognize the talent in others and work with other people. The longer you do it, the more you realize that you cannot do everything by yourself. Sometimes we think we can and we're just, that's ego talking. But My belief is the longer I'm in it, the more I understand I can't do everything by myself. I need to hire people to do certain things. I need to work with other people to do certain things, you know? I can't be on the ground passing out flyers. I need to work with promoters who know their area. I need to work with artists who know how to get in contact with this person. I need to be in touch with my social network and hey, I need you guys for this. Can you help with this? Does anybody know someone who does that thing? Take advantage of your social network, but it starts with acknowledging that you can't do it all alone. And if you know that, then you will be active and an asset to everyone around you, and that will make them want to work with you. You'll recognize their talents and either hire them or enlist them or let them be a part of helping you come up. And that's how you are successful. You can't do it alone, and you got to be dedicated.
That's what's up right there. That was nothing but wise words. I really appreciate that blueprint. I feel like the folks around here are gonna be, soaking that right on in because it's very true, especially in this scene here in Humboldt County. You know what I mean? You got people out there to help you with certain things. You can't do it. You can try to do it all on your own, but let me tell you what, the quality is not gonna be there unless you go with somebody who's like a super dope videographer. You know what
Exactly.
I mean? That's going to make
Exactly.
some super dope content with you. You know what I mean? Collaborate in your community. And so that those wide words fit this community so well. And so I'm really glad you brought both of those items up. That was perfect. I appreciate you.
Hell yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. It's been nothing but a pleasure. Make sure y'all go see Blueprint when he comes up here to Humboldt County. Don't miss out because you are gonna definitely be mad at yourself afterwards. So go get a ticket immediately and come out to that show. You know what I mean? Limited tickets, Case is saying. So make sure you get your tickets as soon as possible. You're gonna be able to get the tickets digitally. And
Yes.
so on the flyer, there's going to be a QR code. Follow that QR code, buy your ticket, get yourself on the list, get your ticket, and then we're going to see you at Outer Space, August 29th. Blueprint, thank you again so much. I really appreciate your time this afternoon for this pod.
Hell yeah. Thanks for having me, man. I look forward to
Absolutely.
hearing it. Let me know when it's posted and I'll do my part to spread the word about it.
I sure will. Thank you again. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, brother. Y'all have a good night.
You too.